Hello student, I am Professor Pallavi Devkate. Welcomes you in fourth lecture of Econ 355. Course title is Structure and Dynamics of Indian Agriculture. In previous lecture, we studied the pattern of land holding in India. We studied the concept and meaning of agricultural holding, then different concept of agricultural holding such as basic holding, family holding, optimum holding, operational holding, etc. Also in same topic, we studied size of pattern of holding in India. In this topic, we see the different types of classes, that is small farmer, medium farmer, semi-medium farmer, large farmer and marginal farmer according to size of land holding. Okay, in today's session, we see the fragmentation and subdivision of land holding in India. So first of all, we see the meaning and definition of fragmentation. As the fragmentation, the word which is derived from fragment, which means, that means according to Oxford Dictionary, this fragment means to a small or incomplete part or piece broken off, that is separated from whole it originated belongs to. The land fragmentation, which is also known as pulverization, parcelization and scattering. As we know, with the growth of size of family, the agricultural holding in India is subdivided among the children on the date of owner of land. In this way, the generation after generation, land is being subdivided and fragmented. Under such situation, a member of family gets one tiny plot at one place and another tiny plot at other place. This leading to problem of growing subdivision and fragmentation of holding. It is observed in many countries around the world and it is often viewed as the obstacle to agricultural productivity and modernization. So this land fragmentation is one of the major problem in agricultural productivity and modernization of agriculture. After that, we see the definition of fragmentation and subdivision of land. So fragmentation and subdivision of land holding means division of land into small pieces scattered at many places. Okay, so this fragmentation, it is nothing but the division of larger size of plot into smaller pieces and which scattered all over the villages or at different places. Another definition of land holding, it can be defined as the situation where a farming household possesses several non-contiguous land plots often scattered over the wide area. Okay, so in short, this land fragmentation and subdivision means division of large plots into smaller plots and which are scattered all over the village. That is called as land fragmentation or subdivision. After definition, we studied types of land fragmentation. So there are major 4 types of fragmentation. In that, first one is fragmentation of land ownership, second one is fragmentation of land use, third one separation of ownership and use, and fourth one, that is fragmentation of within a farm, that is internal fragmentation. We see one by one different types of land fragmentation. So first type, that is fragmentation of land ownership. So this land ownership fragmentation, it refers to number of landowners using their land for themselves. That means according to ownership, land is subdivided into smaller units, that is called as fragmentation of ownership. After that, second type is fragmentation of land use. So this refers to number of users which are the tenants of land. So in this type, the land is subdivided or fragmented into smaller units according to use of that particular land. It is called as land use fragmentation. Next, third type, that is internal fragmentation. So this internal fragmentation, it is focused on number of parcel exploited by each user and considered as a main issue, that is size, shape and distance of land. Okay, that means internal fragmentation is done on the basis of size of land, shape of land and distance of land. So this is internal fragmentation. After that, fourth one, that is separation of ownership and use. So this type of land fragmentation is used where there is difference between ownership and use. In that cases, this type of fragmentation is used. After types of land fragmentation, next point is causes of fragmentation and subdivision of land holding. So there are so many reasons or causes which are responsible for fragmentation and subdivision of land. In that first one, that is increasing pressure on population. Second one is law of inheritance. Third one, that is fall of joint family system. Next one is decline of village handicrafts and industries. Next, rural indebtedness. Then psychological attachment of land, crop sharing, land market and historical cultural perspectives. These are the different factors or causes of fragmentation and subdivision of land holding. We see one by one these factors. So first factor, that is increasing the pressure of population. So as we know, the population of India is increasing day by day. India ranked second in the world in case of population after China. So with rapid growth of population in a country, the pressure of population on land is increased. Okay, as the population is increased, the pressure of population on land is also increased. In future, the absence of growth of alternative occupation, people started to put much pressure on agriculture, leading to continuous land fragmentation and land division. Okay, so this is the first factor, that is increase in population pressure. As population is increased, it creates pressure on land holding. It finally results into subdivision and fragmentation of land holding. Okay. Next factor, that is law of inheritance. As we know, the property of ancestor is equally subdivided into their children. This is the law of inheritance. So it is accepted that inheritance is primary cause of land fragmentation. So it is the most important factor in India, that is law of inheritance, which is responsible for land fragmentation and subdivision. In India, the law of inheritance made the provision for equal share of ancestral property among their children. Okay, so this law of inheritance, it states that the property of ancestor is equally distributed among their children. So this is the one of the major cause of land division and fragmentation. After law of inheritance, next factor, that is fall in joint family system. Okay, as we see, the number of joint family is decreases day by day and number of nuclear families increases day by day. So under this system of joint family, there was no need of subdivision of land size of agricultural holding. So when there is joint family system, there is no need to subdivide the land into different smaller units. But under the impact of growing industrialization and urbanization, the joint family system is breaking rapidly into nuclear family, and this nuclear family leading to subdivision of agricultural holding in a country. So this is one of the factor which is responsible for fragmentation of land and subdivision of land. After joint family, next one is decline in village handicrafts and industry. So due to the destruction of village handicrafts and industry, the artisans were forced to discard their ancestral occupation and they started to depend on agriculture, and this is lead to fragmentation and subdivision of land holding. As we see, there are reducing in village handicrafts and village industries. So these village artisans, they are depend on agriculture for their livelihood. So this decline in village handicrafts and industries are finally resulted into fragmentation and subdivision of land holding. Next factor, that is rural indebtedness. As we know, the major source of agricultural finance in village is village money lender, and these village money lenders are charges higher interest rate for the money which are lending to farmer, and for this lending of money they adopting malpractices or unfair means. In this process, sometimes there may be cheating with the farmer's land. So, in this process, the money lenders gradually grab the land of poor cultivators. In this way, the part of land is passing away into the hand of money lenders. This leads to increasing subdivision of land holding. This high degree of rural indebtedness is the cause of land division and fragmentation. Okay, so this is all about rural indebtedness. Next factor, that is psychological attachment of land. So Indians are very much psychologically attached with their lands, and they are not mentally prepared for accepting the payment instead of land. So this type of mentality is raise the problem of subdivision and fragmentation of agricultural holding. Next factor is crop sharing. It is mostly related with big landowners. These big landowners in India, they lease out their lands to the tenants instead of cultivating their own. So in order to avoid the trouble of cultivating such big land, these landowners, they divide the land among the number of tenants, and in this way this large operational holding is reduced to the number of small uneconomical operational holding. So this crop sharing, it is one of the major factor which is responsible for land fragmentation and subdivision. Next factor is land market. As we know, land is multi-purpose resource. The land market plays an important role in the process of ownership restructuring, because the people wish to acquire the piece of land not only for the agricultural activities, but they purchase the land for other reasons like investment, enhancing personal prestige and status, then secure current and future living condition of the family, etc. So this purchasing of land and this land market ultimately leads to the fragmentation and subdivision of land holding. After land market, next point is historical and cultural perspective. So historical and cultural perspective which were prevailing in old communities caused the land fragmentation. The current problem of land fragmentation is the result of historical legacy of ancient field structure. So in those times, the land fragmentation was adaptive in those prevailing conditions. That is, the small fields for acquiring family nutrition, land and animal cultivation, cheap labor and small production, etc. However, these conditions are not well suited in current modern agricultural mechanization demand. Okay, so these are the different causes of land fragmentation, in which we see the pressure of population, law of inheritance, then fall in joint family system, decline in village handicrafts and industries, rural indebtedness, psychological attachment of land, then crop sharing, land market and historical and cultural perspectives. So these factors are responsible for land fragmentation and subdivision. After causes of land fragmentation, next point is disadvantages of land fragmentation. So there are so many disadvantages of land fragmentation. In that first one, that is obstacle or disease to rational agricultural development. So land fragmentation is the disease or obstacle in rational agricultural development because it suppresses the mechanization, causes inefficiency in production and involves large cost to alleviate its effect. Second disadvantage, that is increase the economic cost. So it is one of the prominent disadvantages of land fragmentation because of time wasted and extra expenses involved in movement of labor, machines, etc. Since the land parcels are scattered in various locations, so it is responsible for increase in economic cost, and this increase in economic cost ultimately resulted in decrease in agricultural productivity and hence income is reduced. After that, next disadvantage is fragmentation limit the modernization and rationalization. So this fragmentation limit the wish of farmer to modernize or rationalize his land holding by introducing new agricultural techniques such as machinery, irrigation system, fencing, and also prevent the introduction of new crop, disease control, etc. This is due to the small size of land holding. Next point, that is fragmented land can increase the transport cost as the plots are located far away from home and far away from each other plot. There is wastage of time for workers spent on traveling in between the plots and the home. After that, next disadvantage is management supervision and securing of scattered plots can also difficult and time consuming and also costly. So as the large land holding, the management supervision is difficult. Next disadvantage is small scattered plot waste the land area and require more land for fencing, border construction, paths and roads. After that, next disadvantage is the fragmentation might also increase the risk of dispute between neighbors. Next one, small fragmented land holding might also causes difficulty to grow certain crops and prevent the farmers from changing high profit crops. Next disadvantage is small and scattered plots hamper the use of machineries and other large scale agricultural practices. Next disadvantage is small land holding also discourage the development of infrastructure like transportation, communication, irrigation and drainage, etc. And finally, it is noticed that banks are sometimes unwilling to take small scattered land holding as a collateral security, which results in farmer cannot get the credit to make the investment in his land. So this is all about disadvantages of land fragmentation. After disadvantages, next one, that is advantages of land fragmentation. So first advantage, that is risk management. So this risk management involves logical risk reduction by giving the farmer variety of soil, crops and growing condition because of land dispersion at various places. After that, next advantage is crop scheduling. So this crop scheduling, when the land holding is scattered to various locations, it having variety of altitudes and because of that the crops ripen at different times. So farmer can take the advantages for adjustment of his labor force according to schedule to avoid the labor bottlenecks. Next advantage, some non-economic and social benefit of fragmentation, that is offered by the fact the scattered land are easier to distribute among their children. Next benefit, that is land fragmentation is associated with variety of soil and growing condition that reduce the risk of total crop failure. Okay, after that, next advantage, that means when the fields with high yield in one year may the following year generate much lower yields Thus, the several plots of same crop spread out the risk. After that, next advantage, that is prevent the division of society. That means subdivision of land holding prevent the division of society into two antagonistic classes, that is class of big landowners and landless agricultural labor. So it ensures certain degree of economic equality. So these are the different advantages of land fragmentation. Okay, so this is all about today's session, in which we study the fragmentation and subdivision of land holding. In that, we studied the meaning and definition of land fragmentation, then types of land fragmentation, then factors or causes which are responsible for land fragmentation, and lastly we studied the advantages and disadvantages of land fragmentation. So question may be asked on this topic: define land fragmentation and explain different factors which are responsible for land fragmentation. Also, question may be asked on same topic like define land fragmentation and explain advantages and disadvantages of land fragmentation. So this is all about today's session, that is land fragmentation. Okay, thank you all.